Okay, so we're online. Hello, everyone. This is the 11th episode of our Meteor Mentor Hangouts. I'm really glad we have been doing this for a long time right now, and I hope we can. Oh, something flew by me. Did you see that? Yeah, I'm not living in a jungle, but still. All right then. We have Kayas here. Anyone who's been watching these series know him. We have two new members, Jeff and Gerald. So hello, Jeff. I know you did introduce yourself earlier, but could you take like at least a little time to reintroduce yourself so that anyone watching this later.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
Jeff Hale, sometimes handles Disc Diver, and learning Meteor. Very excited. I get a little feedback here. I'm going to try to turn down my volume. Very excited about having some mentorship resources to facilitate learning and speed it up, and excited about giving back to the community. It's a great community.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, for those kind words. I mean, yeah, the community is great. So welcome again.
Thank you.
Okay, having talked about community, just before we went online, Clarice and I were talking about how helpful Abigail Watson was to me when I first started out. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say hi and say thank you to her if she's watching. Anyhow, okay, so this is an interesting hangout due to the timing because we had 1.3 coming out last week. So it is really exciting news from, especially it also means some new way of doing things from now on. Not that they're not backwards compatible, but Meteor is now actually encouraging us to take the road of the broader JavaScript standards. So I guess it's fit to talk about that for a little. And then we had two great announcements about React Land. One was Storybook from Orinoda, and another one was officially from MDG, the Chromatic, what was it called? Yeah, Chromatic.
Yes,
Yeah, especially helpful tools for component development. And I think Chromatic also comes with a built-in set of components that we could use in our projects. Anyway, although they're React land, they're really helpful in development, and they kind of resemble how web development, application development goes, the direction application development is going. So I think it's fit to talk about that for a little too. And then I'd like to take a little time to talk about what I've been doing lately. Mainly, I've been trying to teach myself React, and I'd like to talk a little about what I have done in taking that course. And then I'll take any questions you may have around these or any other topics. So before starting these, do any of you guys have any specific and very burning hot urgent question that need addressing?
Well, I have like upload trailing stuff like that I can ask later.
Okay, all right then. Okay. Okay, let's take some time to discuss Meteor 1.3 and what it means for us and what you should be looking out for. First of all, we have actually discussed this previously during some of the beta releases, but since it's now officially out, um, I think the first thing you should do, guys, is go check out the Meteor guide again once more. If you haven't already done that, you should definitely do that. It's also accompanied by a great example app, the To-Dos app. It looks a little complicated at first, but if you follow along with the guide, it starts to make sense. The premise of the guide is actually about best practices. It's not the only way of doing things, but you should when you read the guide, you should always think, yeah, there are lots of other ways of doing this thing now, but the guide builds on the community experience and MDG's experience on building stuff, and not getting burnt by mistakes that we have made early on down the road. So if you follow along the guide, and if you find something that's useful to you, that's great. If you find something that doesn't really work that great for you, that's also fine. I mean, you don't have to stick with everything the guide says, but you should keep this in mind that That's there for a reason, and that's done like that for a reason. And the reason is generally for larger apps, not for those weekend apps that we try to build in a few days or build in the time that we squeeze out from the other stuff. It's perfectly fine. But once you start working on a larger app that includes lots of screens, lots of components, lots of different URLs, routes and stuff, and different collections, it becomes making sense. And then, especially if you start working on a team, you take a project and divide tasks, then it makes even more sense because working in a team means standardizing the way of doing things. It even incorporates an article about style guide, actually, just to make the point, so that everyone uses the same set of rules within app development. So the first thing you should do definitely is go check out and read through the guide. So what does 1.3 bring in? Most importantly, NPM support, direct NPM support. So this means that, for example, if you need a utility library that lives in the JavaScript land, but it's nothing native to Meteor, that means you don't have to use the atmosphere wrappers for that anymore. You can actually go and use them directly from NPM. If you haven't heard NPM, it's on npmjs.org. It's a site a lot like Atmosphere, but larger, much larger. Anything that's built with JavaScript and is open source and you can use in your projects probably is available on NPM. It even supersedes tools like Gulp and Grunt, such that you can actually use NPM to take in those client-side libraries to your project using NPM. So Meteor 1.3 has direct support for NPM, which means you don't have to use package wrappers, you don't have to use hacks like Meteor hacks NPM package. You can just do NPM install, and it appears in your project within your node modules directory at the top level directory of your project. And from that, how to use that. That's the second thing Meteor 1.3 brings on the table. That's official support for exports and imports. Well, have any of you guys not heard or not used import and export before? Okay, so you're not totally unfamiliar with it. Okay, then I'll keep this brief. Essentially, imports and exports are for organizing your app, because when you're working with JavaScript, you're probably working either in a huge file or probably in lots of different files. Your code is scattered around places, and JavaScript hadn't had any previous way of telling the application which file comes first and which file should supersede the other, which file should use some function, some constant, some variable from another file. So to make those different files talk to each other, one file exports, says that, hey, I have all these functions and constants and variables and all that stuff in me, but some of them I think are going to be valuable to other files, to other code that lives out of this file. So they export them. And other files who feel the need to use those functions and variables and stuff from the other file imports them using the export and import statements. So especially in Meteor land, if you haven't familiar yourself with AMD and CommonJS or any other module loader stuff from the broader JavaScript community, the thing is, everything was already available globally to the whole app. So in Meteor, you did not have to import or export anything. You needed something that was magically there. The only problem was you had to make sure it appeared in a file that comes before in the described app load order. An app load order required you to name some clients like server and client and lib and main.js, or place them under directories. or make sure that when they are sorted alphabetically, one file comes before the other, and a combination of all of these sometimes made sense, sometimes did not. If the problem grew larger, then you would perhaps refactor your app so that you put some of those smaller parts in what we have called packages. But now we don't need to do any of those. First of all, imports and exports do not make the global availability defunct. Still, it works. Anything that used to work on Meteor 1.2 without the imports and exports still do work. So don't worry about that. It will, however, help you pinpoint and mitigate some of those load order issues. So in case you have a file where you're tracking if something is already available, making sure it is, and then trying to do some stuff, you don't have to do that. You could just place an import statement and an export statement corresponding to that on the other file, and you'll be sure that it will have loaded before. So it will. You can start using imports and exports as an opt-in aid for your load order problems. And then once you grow more comfortable with it, you could exclusively start using imports and exports. And the way to exclusively use them is using the imports folder, like the packages folder. Now it's called, you can think of it like it's called imports now. Anything you place in the imports folder means that they are not loaded into your app, that you have to load them explicitly. And that brings us to the NPM stuff. Whenever you install something from NPM, you have to import them in order to use them, because they are placed in your node modules directory, and Meteor basically ignores that directory until you tell it otherwise. And the way to tell it otherwise is importing from those libraries that you have just installed using npm install library name -- save, so that it's available in your app. Okay, I've done a lot of talking. Do you guys have any questions regarding these at the moment?
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, when you install something from the npm, like for example, a React, let's say a React package, say hey npm install React something, and all we have to do is just import that package, right? Import React from React, something like that.
Exactly.
Right? Nothing else.
Nothing else. Nothing else.
All right.
But the thing is, well, there are other stuff you could opt in to do. You don't have to do, but there are things you could do. For example, some packages export just a single thing, like you import React and you're done with it. You don't need to import anything else. But some of them also React as well. But some packages divide their exports into groups or into individual components, so that you don't have to import the complete library. Instead, you import just a small part of that library. For example, if you're used to using something like underscore or Lodash or Lambda, those libraries provide you with utilities like map, each, sum, all, find where, concat, etc. Array and object manipulation, especially, and a lot of other functional utilities. What you could do is import everything from that library, or read up the documentation, and if it imports individual pieces separately, like import map from Lodash, or import compose from Lodash, something like that. You could only take in that small part of the utility library into your part of the app that you imported it from. That means better load order organization, even sometimes smaller application footprint, because in the end you may find yourself not delivering the whole thing to the client, and the thing that the client receives could be just a subset. So in order to optimize for performance, you are actually encouraged to read up on the exports section of their documentation and import the things you require only. But you can always do a blanket import and get in anything, okay?
All right.
Okay, cool. So there's a lot of literature around imports and exports. since it's a JavaScript standard, it doesn't have to be Meteor specific. You can go ahead and read any import-export tutorial on the internet. But if you want something more Meteor specific, the guide goes through what I've just discussed. It tells you about the significance of imports as well as its significance in terms of packages and load order management in Meteor apps. So it's something you should definitely check out. One more thing about that is Meteor packages are also available to importing. But the way to import them is kind of different. I mean, you use the same syntax, but the naming is different, such that you import from Meteor / something. Or if you have imported a package from Atmosphere, let's say, I don't know, it's available like that. Let's say I'll something. You import from I'll / something. So you should definitely check out the naming of the file or the package name where you're doing your importing, because it might be one of the first things that you might get bitten by. So make sure you read up on that documentation as well. And make sure whenever you get an error, make sure your imports and exports are correct, because there are different ways of importing stuff, like using stars, using curly braces, using the name without curly braces, using things like as, providing a different name to the export, etc. It might become quickly confusing. You can use whichever one you feel like it's easier for you, because they basically have no difference in terms of the way you use them. Syntaxes may be different. So you could start out sticking to your favorite syntax, and then gradually in time, as you discover what those other syntax actually bring on the table, you could start using them as well. But you're not going to be losing much if you're not using anything you don't understand. So stick to what you know, trying to improve with whatever the guide is telling you to. And then come back on Slack and ask me if you have any questions. Okay? So I'd like to actually move on to another topic right now, because I think we have talked about imports and exports as much as they do deserve it. We have covered NPM, we have covered importing packages, libraries from NPM. And then, okay, what's new with 1.3? If you have realized, 1.3 has also kind of almost synonymous with React. Although it's not. I mean, Blaze is still a first-class citizen. I really don't want to get into any of the Blaze versus React versus Angular versus whatever else arguments, because I think they have no merit. Whatever you feel more comfortable with, go with that. And then once you begin feeling comfortable with all of them, you can then do your own choosing for whatever project you have at hand. For example, I don't always prefer Blaze, and I'm definitely sure that I won't always prefer React either. I think both of them have their advantages. So it depends on how comfortable you are with either one of them, given that you have a specific task and you need some ways to solve those problems. React is really great with making things components and modularizing your app, and Blaze is especially powerful with its simplicity. So there you go. They both have merit in their pros, and they most certainly have cons compared to each other. Anyway, I'll skip that discussion, but let you know that if you are using React, starting with 1.3, you no longer should be using React from Atmosphere. You should be using React from NPM, so that you are actually in line with the broader JavaScript community.
So does it,
yeah.
Sorry. So does it mean, like, now that we can natively install NPM packages, we can use almost anything out there without even thinking like the way we did with Atmosphere? I mean, Meteor server side is a bit different, no? I mean,
well,
a lot of
it's a tricky question. Most of the time, you're going to find that importing them is just sufficient to use them. But sometimes there are packages that work asynchronously, and those asynchronicity issues may be become problematic on the server side. Because on the server side with Meteor, we have fibers, and Meteor has its own environment. So the code that runs within the server needs to be aware of that environment. And if you have that kind of requirement, there are ways to make the npm library and Meteor's environment talk to each other and make sure that they run within the same environment, so to speak. The guide actually discusses that. But the main utilities that you may find useful to do that are still the good old wrap async, wrap sync, and meteor.bind environment utilities that we always used to use for such stuff. It's actually not too much different. It's still the same. So whenever you import a server-side library, especially one that deals with external APIs, it should give you a clue that you might have to look into using meteor.wrap async or meteor.bind environment, okay? And then once you are comfortable with those, you might also want to read up on promises and async awaits. They might be somewhat advanced topics for you right now, but they are the way forward. They actually make dealing with asynchronous code easier. That's actually what Fibers and Meteor bind environment does actually behind the scenes. But still, getting a grip on promises and async can actually help you tackle those issues. Especially help you with making the client and the server talk together over those APIs. I know this has been a kind of vague answer to your question, nothing so specific. But is it okay? I mean, are you feeling comfortable with the answer? Okay, thanks. Okay.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
The Meteor Chef has a tutorial on promises from a couple weeks ago that's maybe worth looking at if that's someplace you want to go.
It is actually worth looking at. Would you like to share that URL on the Slack channel for us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it is actually a great thing because I've actually read up on that a week or two back, and I find that article really easy to follow, and it actually does a quite great job, about telling how you can use promises and make your life easier and eliminate some of the callbacks that you have been using. So. But it doesn't specifically tell you what promises are technically and what the background is. So if you want to go even deeper, you could look at some of the raw ES6 promises and async awaits tutorials out there.
Yeah. The on that topic, Getify, You Don't Know JS has I think a good discussion of promises. It's pretty detailed, but really help you understand what's happening.
Great. Then you should probably share that link with the rest of us also. So,
sure.
So that, yeah, we could take some time to read those. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So what next? Okay, I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk about what I've been doing with React and how I've been dealing with learning React. I've actually okay, the whole thing started like this. About 2 weeks ago, I delivered this huge project, and I'm just about to begin on another largish one nowadays. And I had this small gap in between, so I had some time on my hands. And I want to do something useful and learn React. And I've been following up on React. I've been reading almost all of the blog posts, almost all of the tutorials and things, but never ever touching code with React. So it was all something I was subconsciously acquiring pieces of knowledge. So that means I'm not a total React newbie. Whenever I read something on React, I know what the context is, I know what the concepts are about, and whenever I see something, I can feel comfortable saying, oh, okay, this was something old, now there's some new way of doing this. For example, whenever I see React.create class, I know that I should not be reading that tutorial because that's an old story. The new way of doing things is like blah blah class extends React.component. So I had taken the opportunity to let myself get more familiar with React before even starting to learn React. So why I'm telling you guys this? Because you are here to learn stuff. And I know everybody has different styles in learning, but my style, and I think it really does work, whenever you set a goal for yourself for learning something, make sure you are actually aware of your learning desire early on, so that you just take some time skimming through articles, watching some videos, some tours, but not really putting effort in it. Just taking some time to skim through things. Just get yourself familiar with this stuff. And then when you actually sit down and say, okay, now I'm taking this many hours to learn this, you will have a basic understanding of what you will actually learn. So in essence, not knowing what you're going to learn is actually the hardest part of learning that you need to overcome. So to make life easier, you should know what you are going to learn at least. You should know what you don't know. That's the key. So a great way to do that is just follow the forums, because the forums is a great place. People are sharing lots of new stuff there, so you get to know of what's cool and what's new and where people had problems. Especially that's a very valuable information. Whenever you go through the latest topics on the forum, and when you see the category help, it's actually great checking it out, because you know that you would probably hit the same thing sometime down the road if you haven't already. So just noticing them, and being aware that those problems exist, and later on down the road when you hit the same block, where to look is a nice thing to have. So having done that for a lot of months now, last week I decided to read up on some of the tutorials. I kind of had an idea about which of those tutorials I wanted to actually follow. So I did, and then now I have an even better idea which ones are more valuable to any of you around this time, especially since they are still valid. They're not old stories yet, but they can be any moment. So this is JavaScript. I posted as a thread on the forums. I don't know where it is actually. Let me pull that up for you. Something. Oh yeah, my React learning journey. Yeah. Okay, here's the link. I started jotting down a list of the items that I've read. Some of them are not free, by the way. I mean, I thought like instead of trying to seek free stuff, why not just pay for the good stuff and be done with it? It wasn't too much of too big of an investment. The overall, I paid like somewhere $120. So, and I think it's worth every single penny of that. In the end, I had this broad idea about the specific topics that need specific addressing. So I made a list of those topics. You should probably read up on them if you're interested in teaching yourself React. Some interesting topics are routing, Redux, Mantra, obviously integration with Meteor.data, and forms and data grids and CSS. And integrating a React and Blaze together if you're especially migrating from one to the other in a project. So you need to take some time to live with both of them at the same time. And then Webpack, one of the new stuff, technologies. So I jotted down my ideas about them. A lot of people were helpful to chip in and chime in with their points of view and their experiences. So it's actually a great thread now. If you want to start learning React, it's a nice place to start. And there are a lot of other stuff, of course, you should take the time to read up on. And I could say that if you have the time in your hand, and if you especially have something to work on, I mean, not just reading and watching stuff, but you have an actual real project that you want to deliver with React, I think it's not going to take any more than a week for you to have a profound knowledge of the technology. And then, of course, down the road, you're going to feel some of those rough edges, feel that you're going to need to change some of your ideas about it. But that's, like with developments anyways. So if you're scared about learning that, you should, be relieved that you could actually master the goddamn thing in a week. So don't be afraid of learning React.
But does that include Redux and data state management and all that? Because that is like more complicated.
It actually does. It actually does. You know what? I feel pretty comfortable with Redux right now. I also know that I don't want to use Redux until I actually need to use it. Because my understanding, there are different opinions about Redux. First of all, it's a great piece of, it's not a new technology, it's actually a great pattern to use in UI development. It takes everything that tells your components what to do, how to act, where to appear, when to disappear, etc., and puts them all in a single context, including the orders of changing things, like show this right now or do this action right now, and then what happens after doing them. So everything is contained within some single place, what they call a store. You can have multiple of those. Anyway, that's a different topic. But still, it's a great paradigm. It's really easy to debug your app. It's really easy to reason about it. It's really easy to know where to look at it. If you're running into a problem, you know that you have to look at your Redux store because everything is there actually. Anything else is actually dummy stuff, components and stuff. So, and as long as your components are pure in the sense that they take in properties and they show you something, but does not have any side effects or doesn't expect anything from the outside, that means Redux gives you a magic formula that tells you that, hey, if you have a problem, you have to look here. There it is. And it has great debugging tools, etc. But the thing is, I am already really comfortable with alternative tools that kind of do the same thing. For example, I love reactive data. Because I also, since almost all my components at the higher level or the hierarchy, they integrate with Meteor data somehow, somewhere. Why not also integrate with reactive data? Since it's also native Meteor reactive data source. So why mix two different technologies together? I know where to look at. I know how reactivity works. I know when reactivity bites you. I know where it actually does bite me, and when it is going to bite me, I know before it does, and I know how to fix it. But that's because all this experience I have with Tracker and Blaze and reactivity. So putting that knowledge and context into React is actually much more second nature to me than to get in Redux and make it my muscle memory. I already have Tracker muscle memory, so that's me, by the way.
So you're using Tracker React?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to be using a mix of MVG's create container and Tracker.component from Tim Brandon.
Okay.
I have gone through the source codes of React Composer, React Meteor data, which is also what lies behind create container from MVG, and then Tracker React and Tracker.component. Before Tracker.component appeared last week, I felt that Tracker React was going to be my first choice, but then Tracker component appeared out of thin air, and it is really easy. The source code is like 50 lines, and you know that it is working. You know that if it does not work, you know where to look. So it's really easy to create bug reports on them if there's at all any bug with it. So yeah, I think I'm going to be using tracker.component. Plus, create container from Meteor because I want to see the differences about how they perform, not just in terms of performance, but also in terms of behavior. So that's why I'm going to be using two of those. But I know I'm not going to be using React Composer because create container does the exact same thing, and it's from MDG. And this is my personal preference. I'm not saying that React Composer is bad. I think it's a great piece of technology, and it's not limited to Meteor. If you feel like you don't want to be limited to Meteor, but you want to have other options available to you, React Composer is much better in that way because it's not built for Meteor. It's built for composing data and React components together. So it's a more high-level utility. Tracker component, I think, Tracker React, I think Tracker.component replaces Tracker React in my mind. So
who is Tracker component from? MDG?
Sorry? Oh, it's from Tim Brandon.
Tracker component?
It's from Tim Brandon.
I thought Tim Brandon and Facey Spacey, they were making Tracker React.
Okay, let's check. He's from a company called Studio Interact.
I know Tim Brandon, and I saw him on the Space Dojo the other day posting things. Tracker React. So I'm kind of confused. Like there are like 4 or 5 ways to do like data and stuff.
Yeah, okay. Let me share. I'm just going to share a link right now.
Okay. And also there's this GraphQL is coming up. I was watching 1.3.
That's a whole different story. That's a whole different story.
Like Sashka was telling, like, oh, we're gonna do it really aggressively. Next week, someone's gonna put it into production. I was like, what?
That's wild.
Okay, so guys,
and it feels like.
Sorry.
It feels like they're. It feels like Meteor MDG is gonna like utilize that Apollo stack somehow, make it into a money-making machine or something. And somehow they're gonna monetize it. That's how a lot of people are feeling.
Well,
various places as well.
Well, it's only natural that MDG wants to make money from those technologies, but the only thing is they are going to make more money if more people use them. So instead of locking in the use of those technologies to behind the paywall, I think their overall philosophy is open sourcing stuff, and they're actually building this stuff out in the open. So I don't share those concerns about MDG might be requiring payments to use the technology. I don't think so. What they're probably going to do is provide us with an infrastructure layer, just like Galaxy, to run our data layers. I think that's what they're going to make their money from. And I think that's also going to have its alternatives, just like Galaxy has its alternatives right now. A lot of people are now using Galaxy, although it's a great piece of product. There are lots of alternatives out there, right? And whatever comes with Apollo's infrastructure stack, I think MDG is going to provide us with a superior tool, which is not going to be something very cheap, and which is also going to have its alternatives. So they have to make some money, otherwise they're not going to be able to provide us with all these technologies, right? They have to make some.
I'm not like talking about like not willing to pay money or anything, but it's just I'm I guess confused about what they're trying to do and what we should really put our time learning on. Because there's like 4 or 5 ways of using like data with React, and then 1 month later you have like GraphQL. So
well, I think it's actually clear now. I think it is actually really clear now because they have publicly announced Apollo. They have publicly announced a chart of what they have in mind. I mean, that's not a definitive roadmap, but that's a vision about the structure of the technology that they're trying to build and how it's going to work. And they said that they are going to do their best trying to get it work. And if they cannot get something working, they are going to try finding alternative ways to it. I mean, they have all spoken about these before. So I do trust them on their decision to take on data management with GraphQL. And I know that it's going to be available to us not within the next 6 months. It's going to arrive later than that. Perhaps we may be seeing some small pieces of that running today, tomorrow, anyhow. But still, incorporating that technology on production Meteor apps, I think that's something we're not going to be seeing in the very short term. I think we should be, checking that out during sometime around, I don't know, the first half of next year, I guess. Onwards. Yeah. So currently, if you are not concerned about integrating with alternative data backends, if you are happy with MongoDB, I think you're fine with whatever you have at hand. And if you want to integrate with alternative data backends, you still can do that. Actually, people have been doing that for the past 2 years with Meteor. I mean, you can use Postgres, you can use MySQL, you can use external APIs, you can use graph databases, etc. I mean, there are nice solutions out there, especially on Atmosphere. So I'm not actually concerned about those as problems right now. Yeah. Okay. Tracker Components is from Studio Interact, and Tim Brandon is a person working for Studio Interact, and they also have this Accounts UI component right now. So, for example, if you want to switch over to React and you want to use some accounts packages, especially for your UI, you have been out of luck because you had to use the Blaze ones and you had to incorporate them in your React components. Render them together, but now that there's a new package out there, you can actually directly use React account components. They're also from Studio Interact. And no, I'm not getting paid by Studio Interact. This sounds a lot like a commercial right now. So let's.
There's like 4 or 5 ways. I mean, that's why.
There are a lot of ways to doing things, but if you want to be strictly the Meteor guide driven. Go ahead and use create container, okay? Because that's obvious. That's what's written on the guide. But it's kind of a different syntax. I don't always want to compose stuff. Sometimes I might want to be able to directly accessing the data within the component itself. I know it's unorthodox. I know people are telling you to do otherwise. But hey, that's my app, and I know what I'm doing, and I know why I'm doing. I mean, I'm driven by results, and I'm driven by requirements, and I'm driven by my reasons. So whenever I see fit, I can use either one. By the way, you can use Tracker component for composition as well, so it's powerful in that way. But if I'm going to be doing composition, I'm probably going to be using Create Container. And relying my back on that, but still you'll be using Tracker components to get a feel of the differences, the performance, and I'm really thinking Tracker component is not going to let me down. It has a more Meteor-like API. It feels much more like the API that I'm used to from Blaze. So I think. Especially for migrating from Blaze to React, it might be especially more valuable. Okay.
So like when I first looked at React, it was great. I mean, unlike other people, I really like the JSX format of okay, you have your HTML and JavaScript together. I really liked it. So everything is component based. Everything is in one place. I know where my nav bar is. I know this component, that everything. I don't have to look at like two, like in the JavaScript and the HTML, like the way I normally divide my screen into two and look at both of them. But JSX was really good. But that's when it comes to like data structure, that's when I got confused because every other week someone is coming up with new stuff, and Team Branding has come up with this. This makes his second attempt on the data structure. The first one was with Blaze React, okay, and then Facey Spacey was on that, and then Facey Spacey came up with Tracker React, and then he disappeared. He vanished somewhere else, and then team branding is now coming with tracker component, right? And this is confusing. Like Sasha was talking about the other day in the forum, 4 ways of doing like what do you call it, React. And in the same time, like when you learn React, when I learn React, I want to like work with, let's say if I have a job coming up that says, hey, we are using React with Node, okay, you're gonna work on that. I might want to like work on that as well because I know React. In that case, I would want to use like something that works everywhere, like React Router or a React native way of.
Well, okay, yeah, I understand your point, and if you want to know that you are available to other options, and you want to know that you can always just take out Meteor from your app and do something else with the front end, then first of all, React makes that easier. Second of all, instead of using the more Meteor native ways, you could use React Composer from Arunoda, from Mantra. I mean, that's something specifically built such that they don't have to be locked into Meteor. So that's a really great option, React Composer. And then for your data backend, well, I mean, you could start using GraphQL today. I mean, if you wanted to, there's nothing stopping you to do that, and you could use that within Meteor as well. You should read some of the Kadira articles because they have been doing that for some of their Kadira application pieces, parts, and I know it's doable. But I mean, for me, I don't like starting an app thinking that I might be migrating away within the next 1 year or even 2, because I'm used to development in the enterprise world, and in the enterprise world, I mean, you speak of multiples of 3 or 5. So if you say today that you're going to start off with a technology, and then you might perhaps be switching over to another technology in 2 years. The boss is going to say, no. Why? I mean, then use something else. Use something else that will be existing 5 years down the road. Because you don't want to invest in redeveloping stuff. You don't want to invest in re-educating people. You don't want to invest in finding new people to join in on your team. You don't want, so the enterprise requirements, especially put stability and long-term support on number one, and that's how I was raised as a developer. So that's my nature. Therefore, if I'm going to start a project today, it's not going to be for experimenting. I know that what I'm going to choose now, I'm going to be, people are going to say, okay, you made me a promise. You made me a promise that this technology that you have chosen today, that we wanted to accept in our stack as a new investment, is going to be valid in 2, 3, 4 years from now on. So that's how my mind works. And looking at Meteor, I knew from day one it would be long term, and luckily I was right. I bet on the right horse there. And with React, yeah, I'm beginning to think it is also a piece of technology that's going to be around for a long while. It's also easier for people to understand that it was with Angular. I've never liked Angular, but it's really popular in the enterprise world, by the way.
Yeah.
So React is here to stay, and then Meteor is here to stay. So the decisions I'm going to make today have to be based on the idea that the parts of Meteor and React and the integration layer in between I'm going to decide to use today are going to be relevant tomorrow. And when I look at the guide, I see create component and React Meteor data. I know for a fact that even if it does change, Meteor is going to give me a way of migration time. Okay, so I'm safe with that. And when I look at tracker.components, I feel like it's, in terms of an API, it feels more familiar to me than Tracker React was. Still, I cannot just pull it in and use it. Instead, what I did was sign up on GitHub issues, and I immediately started and posted issues to Tim Brandon, and he was there to answer them. And then the code changed for a little while. It happened to be a few releases in between, and then now it came to a point where Tim Brandon knows that he's not the only user, and he has committed to replying issues. He has committed to fixing the problems that anyone else may discover. He has also committed to documentation, and the source code is 50 lines. So down the road, if it so happens that Tim Brandon wants to abandon this, I can so easily take those 50 lines of code into my project and use them. So I want to talk about, actually we have discussed a very similar topic before. You remember when we talked about atmosphere packages getting abandoned and then not seeing any new releases, and then people having to find packages, etc. You remember what I said? I said was, before taking in a package from Atmosphere, I always look at the source code. And if the source code is something really simple, something that I can maintain, I try to get the parts that I want to use and not use the whole package. And if it's a larger package and I really am going to be using it, then I immediately start contributing in terms of issues, in terms of documentations and questions and answering people. And I'm trying to help the package author know that he's not alone, know that he is appreciated, know that should he need any help, I'm there to help.
All right.
So that's it. That's the way to choose a package. So to answer specifically your questions about all these packages that are doing the same thing, yeah, there are lots of choices, and you have to make a decision and stick with that for a while at least. And before making that choice, try to be familiar with how it's working. So you make a wiser choice. Instead of choosing the author of the package, choose the package itself. I mean, if tomorrow Tim Brandon says, "What the hell? I'm gonna go fishing and never come back. I'm just sailing off," I'd say, "Okay, no problem. I know the code."
Has happened actually.
Good for him. I mean, I wish I could do the same.
Remember the story I told you? Learn Meteor just properly. The guy who started it, he has actually done that. He went on soul searching.
Yeah.
Yeah, he makes food for a living.
Yeah.
And he says he's like really happy that he hasn't written a line of code.
Yes, this is right. Anything can happen anytime.
I don't think that's gonna happen with Tim Brandon, hopefully, but because I know I've been following him for some time now. Tim Brandon is like really cool. But he worked with so, but anyway, so I have some other questions.
Yeah.
I think, well, Meteor upload, sorry, Mongo upload trailing. When I went to launch my app in MongoLab, and I made, there was this couple of options. Basically, there's a sandbox option which is free for 500 megabytes of So they don't offer upload trailing, right?
Right.
Upload trailing, they don't offer it. But the other one, which is like $15 a month,
Mm-hmm.
they do.
Yeah.
And one of my friend was telling me like they've used MongoLab, and in 2 years their database is like only 180 megabytes. It's not even 200 megabytes. So
Mm-hmm.
they're still in the free time. So I was thinking, if I don't use the upload tailing, how badly it will affect my app?
Well, I mean, for some apps, disabling upload tailing could actually be a good thing. Because, what Meteor does is track the upload, whatever changes from first time it has received some data and then onward, it applies the changes to all of the connected clients. So, for example, that means that if you are using upload tailing and then you have a collection with 1,000 documents and all of your users are subscribed to that collection, and then you make a change on all of them, you update with multi equals true, that means all your clients are going to have to get new information instantly, which is a burden on the app. So some people actually prefer disabling upload for long polling. When you disable upload, when you don't provide an upload URL, it's already disabled. What your app is, it falls back to long polling. Long polling is within a time window of 10 seconds, each connected client asks the database, is there something new? Is there something new? Is there something new? That's done every 10 seconds. So statistically speaking, the change between something that a user does and then another user getting notified of that change, the time in between something like statistically, you could say 5 seconds or something like that. Sometimes immediately. So that's just an average. So if your app really does not have to feel very, very, very real time, you can actually live without upload tailing, and your users won't even notice.
Okay.
And if you're specifically asking for the matrimony app,
Yep.
the only part that would not work that great would probably be the chat.
Okay.
But if people are not chatting like, hello, hi, how are you? Hi there, how are you? And if people are chatting at that rate, you probably need upload tailing. Since you have built your chat on collections, not streams. But for other parts like notifications, someone has befriended you, you want to accept, yeah, I want to accept. That kind of communication can wait a few seconds. It doesn't have to be immediately, Do you think Facebook is actually that immediate? No. So your app can live without upload trailing, I believe. But for the chat part, you should test it with a couple of users and see how they feel about it.
Okay, so do I have to like do the long polling, implement that myself, or like just say, let's say
long polling is automatically done by Meteor. If you don't provide an upload URL, it automatically falls back to long polling. You don't have to do anything. So if you go ahead and configure the free tier from MLab, the sandbox database, you will be using long polling.
all right, cool, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So
Yep.
It's the other way around. If you want to use upload, you have to configure upload and point your app to your upload URL. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to do anything. Okay?
So there's no settings or anything.
No setting. You just provide the Mongo URL. That's it. And there you go. You have long polling.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna test it out. See how it works.
Yeah, test it. Especially test it with chat. If the chat messaging part of the app works for you, I think you're gonna be fine with it. Okay?
All right. Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, we're running out of time. Actually, we have run out of time. But if you or Gerald has any, one last question, I could take that. Otherwise, I'm gonna say, have a great weekend.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm still confused over trying to get the modal dialogues to work.
Oh, yeah, I promised you that. Okay, so you're very welcome to hold me up to that promise. So, okay, we magically have more time now. Okay, so do you have a piece of code that you could share?
Yeah, I do. I put together a simple example like you had asked.
Okay,
I don't know, how should I show that to you?
could you just share your screen right now?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay.
Um, so I could try anyway.
Okay, on the top left corner, there's a left-hand menu,
There we go.
and you should see a screen share button there in green. Yeah, yep, that's it.
Okay, and so, um, okay, so hopefully you can see this.
Yeah.
So, so I created this as a simple example showing two different ways.
Mhm.
The first one was I was trying to do the HTML way, which if I click the link, it would show a dialog. What I'm trying to do is pull in data from an external website.
Mhm.
So this is the, let me make the screen bigger. This is the URL, and I'm trying to make this is a record ID, so I'm trying to make that dynamic.
Mhm.
Does not work it just doesn't work for me. So it's even though I have it set to dynamic, it is static. It only shows the last record because this comes out of a collection. So anyway, this is one way. So then I thought, okay, I'll try your other way, which was more the Meteor way, which is just using a template. So I created that, and it sort of works,
Mhm.
sort of. The problem I have, though, is in my case, this button is in a list of rows. There's a table with several rows of data, and so the idea is similar to this. I want to be able to click a link and that to show the data. So I would click this. The problem is when this is in a row of data, the template gets rendered in every single row when I click the button.
Okay.
If I put it outside the table, then it either shows up above the table or below the table, and I can't seem to figure out a way to reposition it somewhere else.
Mhm.
And the only way to get the external data in I can find is to use an iframe.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure that, I don't think that's really the best way, but I don't know if there's another way. So that's kind of where I'm stuck.
Okay. All right. Um, could you pull up the code? Oh, yeah. Okay, the code. All right. Dialog template. Where's the dialog template? Okay, there you go. It is visible. Blah blah blah. Okay then. First of all, you say you have a problem with. Okay, you have actually managed to render this dialog template whenever you clicked any one of the lines on your table, and then it displays the correct information, right?
Correct.
Okay, but the problem is you cannot make that appear as a model, as if it's above everything else is a new layer, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it stays
Well,
inside
okay.
of the cell.
Well,
Yeah.
the easiest way to solve that problem is actually using CSS. So what we could do is take a look at this. Let's see the template. Okay, we could place this dialog template within another div first of all, and then using CSS pull that div out of the flow, HTML flow, and then display it above everything else. The way that to do that would be to position it as fixed and using the top, right, bottom, and left properties as 0, 0, 0, 0. That would mean basically, hey, I'm a different div right now. I'm out of the flow and I'm just covering the whole screen.
So
you get what I mean there?
so you said you would put this in a div.
After your if is visible code, after your if is visible code, open up a new div and give it a class like, I don't know, model container or something that doesn't exist. Okay, yeah, cool. And you should perhaps close that div at the end, right before the if closing if.
Will you close it here?
No, you should close it right before the closing if.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there. Okay. So now that we have wrapped this whole thing, we could apply some CSS to model something. And yeah, let's do that. Let's switch over to your main CSS, and yeah, dot model something. Okay, let's to make sure let's give it a bad background color, something like blue, like so to make sure it works. Okay.
I'm sorry. Do what?
Let's give it an ugly background color, something like pink.
Okay.
Kayas loves pink, so let's give it pink.
It's not ugly. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine too. So the next thing will be to position it. To position it, you should do display. Okay, yeah, position fixed. No, position fixed. Sorry, not display. Yeah. Okay. So you should now give it top 0, bottom 0, left 0, and right 0. I think you forgot a semicolon there, yeah. Okay.
And left.
Yeah, and then to make sure this appears above everything else, we should give it a Z index. Yeah. I know. 999. Something like that. Yeah. So let's see what this does in our Meteor array.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it gives a background, but notice where the close is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This means that we need to place that. Okay. To show you that this is actually working, let's go over to the CSS again and give it a padding of like 200 pixels. Okay. So you see, we actually have a model, but now the second part of the problem is centering the site info within the model.
But shouldn't based on the background colors, shouldn't that be coloring the modal, not the background?
No. We have actually created a container for our model. You see that? Model something div is an extra container that we put everything else within. So your dialog mask and dialog panel lives inside that model.
Right. I think that's where I'm confused because we gave this div, right? We gave this section of code a class of modal something.
Yeah.
And we gave that class a background of red. So it seems like this is inverted to what it should be.
It actually no. The outer class, the outer div lives behind the inner div. So
I see what you're saying.
Anything contained within the outer div is actually in, as you see. So it appears above our background.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand. Okay.
So the next task would be to center our dialog mask and dialog panel. But there are a lot of different options for centering stuff. So what I'm going to do is share with you a good website that actually teaches really great CSS tricks, and it's in fact called CSS tricks.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm just sharing the URL on the Slack channel.
So then, okay, yeah, that's simpler. So the question then is, okay, if I need to bring in content from an external website, right? Would I use an iframe within the modal dialog?
Yeah, pulling up content from external website actually does require to use an iframe. I
Okay.
mean, there's
So
but
then,
there are actually hmm. Let me also share with you a site called Embedly. Have you heard of that?
Bedley, no, no. Because where I got stuck here is like, how do I dynamically pass the
The ID.
the ending URL, the record ID, to the modal dialog, to this template?
Okay. Okay. Where does is visible come from?
If is visible is a session variable.
Okay. Why don't you store the ID in the session variable?
Ah, okay,
Yeah, the same thing, the same principle.
gotcha.
Down the
Okay,
road, as you progress with your app and progress with your Meteor knowledge, you will start hearing things like session is evil, session is global. We don't want global stuff in our apps. That's kind of true. There are much better alternatives to session. I usually discourage people from using session, but it seems to me right now you should stick with that because you already have learned how to handle sessions. So stick with this, and then perhaps week or two, come back and ask us what other technologies we could use instead of a session. Okay?
okay.
Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we could talk about that right now. I'm not against talking, but the thing is, I think trying assessing from this code and trying to see what you are assessing from what you have been trying to do and how you have been trying to do those. Session is a good tool for you right now, and as your app grows bigger, you yourself are going to be feeling uncomfortable with session because you are going to start having too many session variables, and then we can introduce you to some better alternatives, but that which require you to wire up more things, but easier to handle, like
Yeah,
reactive dict and reactive vars and other stuff, or
right.
template scoping, etc. There are some more advanced topics, but right now, session is not a bad thing to use. Okay.
Okay, yeah, because my app that I'm actually working on is making extensive use of sessions, so it'd be good for me to learn.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, Gerald, I think we should start discussing template scope to variables and reactive dicts.
Okay.
Like, have you ever worked with template on created, template on rendered, template on destroyed?
Yes, unrendered I have.
Okay. So could you show me a piece of code that you have written using template on rendered or on created, either one?
Let me see, I think it's in here. Um,
You have probably used created maybe. Oh yeah, there's one. Template map uncreated.
yeah.
Okay, let's see. Uh, could you scroll down a little? Yeah, a little more. A little more, please. Just, okay, yeah, continue. Okay. I see. Okay. You know what this thing does is actually you could scroll to the top. Uh, this piece of code says when the template called map is first created, but even before it is rendered on the screen, even before it gets printed on the screen, I need to prepare a Google Maps instance. Okay, and
Right.
then after I prepare a Google Maps instance, I also need to query my sites collection, and then whenever a new site gets added, I need to create a new marker. And then whenever a site image is available, I also need to get that site image for that marker, etc. So
Right.
what it does is prepares a data structure and prepares a Google Maps structure so that it can actually get printed and rendered on the screen. Well, this is actually this is template scoping, and what this does is it does everything within the template. If the template gets created, all this code runs, and otherwise it doesn't run. You cannot run Google Maps.ready of this code anywhere outside of that template. And whenever that template gets destroyed, that means whenever the template is not shown anymore on the screen, it means that you don't have to deal with the leftovers from the Google Maps instance over there. It's just gone with the template. So to apply this kind of understanding to our use case with the models and the other stuff, what you could do is instead of using a session, you could create temporary variables once a template is created. If a template is created and you create a new variable within that template, using a special package called reactive var or reactive dict, anything created in that template gets destroyed once the template is also destroyed. And in other parts of the app, it doesn't bother you because it's not even there. It just lives in the template itself. So this is the basic paradigm. To scope, this is called scoping your reactivity or scoping your subscriptions, scoping your variables within a template. Well, but that's kind of a broader topic to discuss in terms of implementation detail. But what you could do is, I think there should be a nice article about template scoping. Okay, yeah, they would relevant. Scope reactivity. Okay, I just shared. This is a rather old article. I'm just sharing that on Slack now, but it walks you through the basics of creating all these template scoped reactive data sources that I've tried to introduce you with. I know I've done a very abstract introduction here, but believe me, when you read up on this blog post that I've shared, you're gonna just say, ah, yeah, that's it. But the gist of what I've tried to tell you is, instead of putting everything globally, just like you have realized for your own app, there are too many session variables living out there to reason about.
Right.
You contain them. And template scoping is what allows you to do that. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. And if you down the road have any other specific questions about this, feel free to ask on the Slack channel. If I'm not going to be able to answer them, the evening, other people, I'm sure, will be willing to answer you. Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right then. So have a great time coding. Thank you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So have a great weekend, everybody then. Okay?
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.